Welcome to Explorer Classroom. My name is Vivette Dukes, and I am so glad you are joining us today. This month, we are celebrating Earth Month, and we hope that you take the opportunity to invest in our planet. Learn more about Earth Month at nationalgeographic.org. At National Geographic, we use the power of science, exploration, education, and storytelling to illuminate and protect the wonder of our world. Explorer Classroom connects students worldwide with our National Geographic Explorers for short lessons and time for your questions. This school year, each month will be organized around a specific theme. This April, Explorer Classroom will be focused on wildlife conservation and what we can learn from observing animals in the wild. Today, our explorer is none other than the soon-to-be Dr. Arjun Dheer. Arjun is a wildlife ecologist who works to protect the planet's big predators, hyenas, lions, leopards, and more. Today, Arjun will share how he collaborates closely with local communities to better understand how people interact with large carnivores. But before we get into today's lesson, I'd like to welcome our registered viewers who join us from around the globe. Special shout outs for today go to Bel Air Elementary School, James W. Hennigan K through 8 School, East Cooper Montessori Charter School, St. John the Baptist Catholic School, Kenilworth Junior High School, Garden Spot Middle School, and all the homeschools out there. We are thrilled that you are all here with us. And with that, let's get this Explorer Classroom started. It's time to turn it over to Arjun to share all about the planet's biggest predators. Take it away, Arjun.
Okay, let's do this. Thumbs up if everyone can see the beautiful animals on the screen. Great. Okay, well, thank you for that, for a very nice introduction, and a happy International Hyena Day to everyone. It's one of my favorite days of the year. I'm so excited to be here with all of you, and I'm equally excited about large carnivores. So right off the bat, a quick quiz. Raise your hand if you know what a large carnivore is, or what large carnivore means. Wow, okay, almost everyone. Well, for the few of you who don't know, that's totally okay. The meaning's actually pretty simple. Large, of course, means big, and carnivore means meat eater, or an animal that eats meat. So large carnivores are big animals that eat meat. And so on this first slide, I have some nice examples of large carnivores. On the top left is an American black bear. On the top right is a spotted hyena. On the bottom right is a family of cheetahs. At the bottom center is a lion. And at the bottom left is an African wild dog. And all of these animals are large carnivores, and they're all related to each other. Now, carnivores are different from omnivores, which are animals that eat both meat and plants. I have an example of an omnivore on the left. It's called a bush pig, which is very similar to the typical barnyard pig you might see at a farm. And on the right is a giraffe, which is a herbivore. Herbivores are animals that are vegetarian. They only eat plants. So my job is to focus on the carnivores, the meat eaters, in contrast to omnivores and herbivores. And I try to study and protect carnivores because, unfortunately, the number of large carnivores on Earth today is getting lower. And that makes me a bit sad because they play really important roles in nature and the ecosystems they inhabit, and we depend on them in many ways. People really benefit from having carnivores around. So my research aims to understand the behavior of large carnivores and what they need in order to keep surviving, especially in places where they share the landscape with people, near human beings like me and you. And so I can do this research in a number of ways. One way, and my favorite way, the most fun way, of course, is to follow the animals directly from my car. The picture at the bottom left actually shows a lion that I was able to follow all day in order to understand what he was eating, where he was going, what type of places he liked to hang out. And this gave us a lot of information on what lions are going to need to keep surviving into the 21st century. But you might ask what happens in the daytime, or in areas that are more densely forested or more hilly where I can't follow the animals easily from my car. Well, one way is to use a collar. These collars are very similar to the type of collars you might put on your pet dog or cat, only that they have what's called a GPS device, a global positioning system device. And the GPS device will tell me where the animal has been and where it's going in real time. And so I can know at all times what an animal that I'm studying is up to. This picture on the top left of the screen actually shows me and two of my colleagues, two of my coworkers, putting a GPS collar on a spotted hyena. And a picture on the top right shows a very sleepy lion that we had already put a collar on. And the collar was right around the animal's neck. I actually have a little model hyena here without a collar, but the collar would wrap right around its neck. And real hyenas are about 100 times the size of this little model I have here. So about the size of the or bigger even than the very biggest dog that you may have met before. And so the collars don't really disturb the animals. They're actually very light on the animals. And finally, the picture on the bottom right shows a leopard, a type of wild cat. And I got that picture on what's called a camera trap. So a camera trap is a remote camera that I can put out in the forest or the bush, and I can leave it there for weeks. And it'll sense when an animal passes by and take a picture of it. And I could, without even going to the field, I can therefore know which large carnivores are living in this certain area, which types are around, how many of them are around, and that helps me a lot with my research. And I just find these animals so fascinating because although they all have, pretty similar roles as apex predators, the animals at the very top of the food chain, and they all obviously have very sharp teeth and they look super cool, as you can see in the picture on the right. They all go about their daily lives in different ways. Some are social, which means they live in groups, and some are solitary, which means they live alone. So an example of a social large carnivore is, of course, one of my favorites, the spotted hyena, which we can see at the top left there. One hyena is actually grooming another, licking it, giving it a nice ear massage. And you can see the one lying down almost has a smile on its face, seems to be enjoying it, relaxing, because it's a social animal. It likes to be around other hyenas. Whereas, this animal at the bottom left is a leopard. Leopards are solitary, so they like to be alone. This leopard was just hanging out on a tree branch, wanted to be left alone, didn't want to be around other leopards, and certainly not other animals, other species. And because all large carnivores eat meat, they compete with each other. So they want to eat the same food. And so part of my work actually involves understanding how they interact with each other. And I actually have a cool video to show you about that because they'll, let's just see how the video goes. So just quickly, it's a group of hyenas, and they're eating a zebra. And there's a jackal hanging out in the front. A jackal's sort of like a small wild dog, or a bit more fox-like. And you can see the hyenas are looking off to the right of the screen. So they're distracted by something. Let's see what it is. They're all running away, obviously scared. Look at that, it's a lion. It's a big male lion who came and took the zebra from them. And so this is, a very interesting behavior from my research. I like to see how these species interact and how they affect each other, even their survival and how much they can eat and how they share the landscape and space and time and food and things like that. Go to the next slide. Here we go. So this was actually one of my favorite, probably my favorite memory in the field during my research so far. I got to see 30 hyenas actually steal food from 3 lions. And so this behavior, the stealing behavior, the one I showed you in the last slide and the one I'm about to show you now is called kleptoparasitism. That's kleptoparasitism. And so this whole ordeal, I'll play it now, took about an hour. And I was right in the middle of it in my car. I was safe, thankfully. Unfortunately, the audio doesn't work on this one, but you can see the hyenas are all lined up. And they're all very interested. It's almost like an army of them. They're trying to muster up the courage, to do something. So they start moving in. There's the jackals, and they're eating, and now the hyenas come in. Look, and the lion notices, comes back and pushes them off. And so this was going back and forth for an hour until finally the lions gave up. There was just too much going on for them to handle. So they gave up and the hyenas took over. But it was a really, really fun memory. I spent all day watching them do that. Another thing I do with these animals is actually counting them, to monitor population size and see how the populations are performing. Do they need, more management or conservation action? And it's actually not very difficult to do that because every spotted hyena and leopard, so the animal on the top left and the one in the bottom center here, they each have a unique spot pattern on their coats. They're both spotted animals, and their spot patterns are as unique to an individual animal as our fingerprints are. So you can recognize individual hyenas and individual leopards just based on their spot patterns. And this way I get to know each individual animal the way I know, each of my different friends in real life. And that's, very convenient. Lions are a bit tougher, but they have whisker spot patterns that are unique to each other. So this lioness at the top right, she has a really nice, crisp whisker spot pattern. She also has some flies on her nose, it seems, in this picture. But she, I got to know her very well. I was able to follow her for quite a long time, and I always knew who she was based on her whisker spot patterns. So that's a very convenient way to study these animals and get to know them really on an individual level. And so all of that work, directly focused on the animals is very interesting, very fun, very important. But probably the most important aspect of my research actually involves working with people, with local communities, people who are from the area where I'm working and people who share the landscape with these large carnivores. Because to protect these animals and to study them, we really need to respect the people who live alongside them and involve them and balance the needs of people with the needs of the wildlife and the carnivores. And I've worked particularly closely with the Maasai community, which is an ethnic group or tribe based in Tanzania and Kenya. So can you guess where Tanzania and Kenya are? You can just yell it out, shout it out if you want. Which continent are Tanzania and Kenya on? Okay, I see people guessing, so that's good. It's okay if you don't know. I'll show you in the next slide. But basically, working in these areas with diverse partners and colleagues, it requires an explorer mindset. And so that means it involves a lot of curiosity, a great sense of responsibility, a lot of empathy, or the ability to put oneself in others' shoes and understand what they need, what they feel, and what their priorities and values are, and empowerment, making sure that they're designing and conceptualizing the research just as much as I am and really benefiting from it. So just to answer that question, Tanzania and Kenya are in Africa, in East Africa. So you see that big orange star? That's just about where I've worked a lot in the eastern part of Africa. I'm currently based in San Diego, where that purple star is, in in California, United States. And as someone who's from the United States, but who's worked extensively overseas, particularly in developing regions, that's why I really try to emphasize that explorer mindset. And that's something I learned over time. These weren't things that I always knew or always had. And many years ago, when I was your age, when I was in school, I was super interested in animals. I was super interested in wildlife, especially large carnivores and nature and learning. And I really dreamed that one day I'd be able to study these animals. And so I worked really hard in school, especially science class, which was always my favorite. And I luckily met the right people, and I got to where I am today to achieve that dream. And my teachers really supported me. So I would ask that all of you, stay curious, learn from your teachers as much as possible, ask questions. And you can do the same, if your goal is similar. I even got so lucky that I had the chance to take videos and film large carnivores with Jeff Corwin, who was, one of my idols growing up, one of my heroes. I used to watch his show, The Jeff Corwin Experience, as a kid when I was in school, when I was about your age. And it was really a dream come true to do that. It was during my PhD research. So I would really encourage all of you to pursue whatever you're passionate about. Maybe your, goals will come true as well. And you can make a difference if also for large carnivores and local communities, if that's what you're interested in, or whatever else, you might want to do. So, and it's really important to do so because you all are the future. You will be the ones who decide if large carnivores and local communities will be able to coexist or keep coexisting in the future. And that makes me very hopeful because I know you'll be able to do it. And one way to start even today, you don't have to wait, you can start today. And my request to all of you would be to start a conservation conversation. By conservation, I mean the study and the protection of Earth's natural resources and wildlife. So what you can do today specifically is ask a family member or a friend, outside of your classroom, to name one type of large carnivore, whether it's lion or hyena or black bear or brown bear or cheetah, whatever. If they can name one, great, that's awesome. Ask them then what they think can be done to better protect that animal, what we need to do collectively to ensure that this large carnivore species that they named will survive well past the day that you all graduate and finish school. And if they're not able to name a large carnivore species, that's totally okay. That's very normal. But maybe you can name one for them. You can name one of the ones that I've mentioned today. And then you can think together carefully about what needs to be done to protect that species. And one of the key things to remember is that it has to go beyond just focusing on the animal. It needs to really integrate and involve people as well, because conservation is so much more than just the animals. It's also ensuring that people's needs are met, especially the people who live near these animals. And just before we finish, in case you live in a place that doesn't have large carnivores roaming around, I wanted to mention that if you're curious, you can see them in the wild at this URL that I've linked here, explore.org/livecams. They have cams in Alaska, in the United States, where they have brown bears that are hunting for salmon. There's also cams in parts of Africa where you can see lions and hyenas and other species that I've mentioned today. So I'd really encourage you all to check out that URL. I sometimes, when I got bored writing up my PhD thesis, I'd sometimes go there just to be inspired. So yeah, there's a lot of good options there that you can enjoy from the comfort of your home. And with that, I want to say thank you to all of you for listening. Thank you a lot for your attention. If you're not as bored or tired as this lion is, then please feel free to ask me any questions you might have. And thank you once again.
Well, thank you again to Arjun and all the students and teachers watching. We hope you join many more of our events. Our next event for ages 9 to 14 will be on Thursday, May 4th, with explorer Melanie Wenger. And we'll learn how to best interact with wildlife and what we can do to protect endangered species. So go ahead and register for this event and more at natgeoed.org/explorer classroom. You can request a chance to be featured on screen. Fellow teachers, we've also created a new interactive guide for you to share with your students to take them on a learning journey with each of our special guests. Find the Explorer Mindset in Action guide and teacher edition linked on each event registration page. Have a great day, everyone. And remember to stay curious and keep exploring. Bye.